that any American reporter could have so far in this war, covering the occupation of North Africa by American troops.
It was my first time on camera. I just fell into whatever it is I do naturally. I never took any elocution lessons, no diction lessons. I might have been a pretty decent broadcaster if I had.
Walter Cronkite was one of the great ones, anchoring the CBS Evening News from 1962 to 1981. He was called the most trusted man in America. But at age 26 in 1942, he was a newspaper reporter sent to cover World War II in Europe. Cronkite wrote hundreds of letters to his new bride, Betsy, letters rediscovered by his grandson, Walt, and now compiled in a book due out on Tuesday, Cronkite's War, His World War II Letters Home. Walt Cronkite is now a producer here at CBS News. His co-author, Morris Isserman, is a professor of history at Hamilton College in Clinton, New York. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Good morning.
Well, to start with, how did you find these letters?
So I went down to the University of Texas with my father after my grandfather passed away, and we discovered this treasure trove of all these letters he wrote home to my grandmother several times a week during World War II. And we thought it was just fascinating stuff, so I brought them to my professor here, Professor Isserman, and we put them together into a book.
You hadn't seen them before?
I hadn't seen them before. I didn't even know they existed, and it was just incredible. It was almost like a wartime diary. He wrote to her several times a week, just outlining what he did day to day in World War II, and incredible stuff.
And there were some 500 letters, and we think of him as this serious journalist, but really you see a completely different side of him in these letters. He's a real romantic. He's calling her darlingest, and he's saying, I got your wonderful letter. I was so down in the dumps until I received it, and you can see how much I needed it. It's really sweet.
My grandparents had this incredible marriage, married for 65 years, and they were the most fun-loving, funny people. The two of them were truly hilarious. They just loved being with each other, and they had the most fun.
I know that he told you a lot of stories about the war growing up. He was a great storyteller. Did you learn something, either of you, in these letters about World War II that you didn't know before?
Well, there was this great community of reporters in London, including Edward R. Murrow from CBS Radio. There wasn't television then. Murrow tried to recruit Walter Cronkite to CBS, and he turned them down. He wanted to stay. He was a wire service reporter, and he liked it. He actually wheedled a raise out of his wire service from the offer. But you can see that he was really having the time of his life, reporting the biggest story of all times. But he was also torn. Cronkite's war was World War II. It was also this war within himself between his desire to be a great journalist and his desire to be with Betsy. And he kept trying to bring her over. Never could.
It was the most direct form of journalism, in a way, directly to his wife, you know?
Exactly. And in a way, he was taking her with him. It was as if he was her tour guide, and he would write detailed descriptions of London and then Paris and all the places that he went to.
Walt, was there one particular story that he told in these letters that really stood out to you?
His when he crash landed in a glider behind enemy lines during the Battle of Arnhem. He was embedded with the 101st Airborne, and they got into a glider dragged by an airplane, and they crash landed behind enemy lines, and they were there for 12 days under heavy shelling, under the most scary conditions. And he wrote home to his wife that for the first time in the war, he was truly, truly scared.
Well, Walt is following in his grandfather's footsteps. He's a vital member of the CBS News Capitol Hill team, a real go-getter, and I think his grandfather would be really proud to see him now.
He would indeed. Is he? Did you get a different sense of your grandfather from this, do you think?
You know, it really reinforced what I already knew about him. Bob Schieffer said it best at my grandfather's funeral when he said, Walter Cronkite was the same man off screen that he was on screen. And that really showed in the letters. He was competitive, he was hardworking, he was fun-loving. It really showed who he was, and I think you saw that on camera as well.
All right, Walt Cronkite, Morris Isserman, thank you both for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
And a reminder, Cronkite's War will be out on Tuesday.